audience. And I think that's kind of insightful in the sense that that chosen audience could increasingly be yourself versus the outward audience, if you get my meaning. So we'll come to that. So to answer these questions and many more, we have an incredible panel that I'm going to introduce. We have a landowner, we have a brand owner, we have a consolidator of consumers. That's you, sorry. We have an auctioneer and luxury specialist, and then we have what I like to call the professor. So with that in mind, I will ask you from the end, from the far end to the close, to introduce yourselves. Robert, please.
Thanks very much, Mark, and thanks for the invitation. So my name's Robert Sleigh. As you can see from the sign up there, I'm the director of Robert Sleigh Consulting. In a fit of originality, I came up with that name. I am here on the back of 25 years in the auction business with Sotheby's and latterly Phillips in New York and Hong Kong, originally as a wine specialist and then in a managing director role.
I am the professor, I guess, but no one's ever called me a professor. So I'm Charlie Reid. I'm a partner from BCG. I work in retail, mainly around luxury, and I work across the globe, but I'm based here in Hong Kong.
I'm Michael Schriver. I am the president for LVMH North Asia, all of our brands. I've been in Hong Kong for the last 16 years. And I spent my entire professional career in retail, 20 years in the United States, the last 26 years with LVMH. So I'm pretty much a retail junkie, if you will.
I must be the landowner, chief executive of Hong Kong Land. We announced a sort of a change after 135-year history to be a ultra-premium owner-operator of integrated complexes such as we have in Hong Kong Central, but we hope to repeat in Shanghai and other markets across the world. So luxury is part of our sort of DNA going forward.
My name is Gallagher. Feedback, can you hear me now? I'm the CEO for Quintessentially, and I guess I represent the ultra high net worth customer. We offer private concierge services ultimately to individual private clients. We also provide concierge services to brands and luxury brands and brand experiences. So we have a mixture of everyone's view, I think.
Okay, I'm going to kick off with the two Michaels. Smitty, I'm going to start with you first. And because I think you're the newest employee to a company on the panel, all right? So you recently joined, and you can explain, Hong Kong Land. You were previously in Singapore in a very different role. I want to ask you, what attracted you to this role? What is your vision for Hong Kong? What is your vision for Hong Kong Land? I also want to highlight that if you're following a Hong Kong Land, if you're an investor in Hong Kong Land, you're very lucky because the share price has risen by somewhere around 12% since Michael joined. So I want to know what it is investors love about you, Michael.
Same Mark. But anyway,
no, that's luckier.
Thank you. Is that a three-part question?
Yeah.
By the way. I've always been in real estate, but I was a real estate investment banker at Goldman and a number of institutions for many years. So I sat in a lot of boardrooms advising real estate companies across Asia. I'd always had a huge esteem and, affection for Hong Kong Land as a company. It's the oldest real estate company in Asia. The first piece of land was acquired in 1889 in Pedder Street. And through famines and feasts and wars and peace, we've managed to retain what is, I think, the preeminent sort of CBD ultra premium complex, for 130 something years, and continuing to build a moat around that complex. The announcement to spend $1 billion on our refurbishment of Landmark, along with many of Mr. Schriver's brands and others, and really create a center of excellence and luxury, and a deep belief that the Hong Kong Land share price was not truly accurately valuing the essence of the business. So it was a multitude of appeal of the brand itself, but the opportunity to be involved in a real turnaround of the company. And as you said, the share price has reacted well. Now we have a lot to prove. We've got a very big luxury project in Shanghai and West Bund. It's about $9 billion project that we are deploying, and that will be very much a luxury-based integrated complex with 2 Mandarin Orientals and a bunch of brands. So there's multiple opportunities for us to excel at the luxury and the ultra premium end of the market.
Super. And just to focus on Hong Kong, building a moat around, you've invested an awful lot. You come in, what I would say, very aggressively into your new role, and it's been clearly endorsed by the market. What is it about Hong Kong that makes you so excited?
I think people, the Western press is not kind on Hong Kong. Financial Times, I think, very rarely comes up with a positive news piece. But the reality is that this is the second highest city in the world in terms of ultra high net worth. So $30 million net above. This is behind New York as the second largest concentration of ultra high net worth. I think it's 12,500 people that satisfy that criteria. And fortunately for us at Landmark, 90% of our customers are Hong Kong customers. So we continue to reinvest in the central portfolio for 100 years. So this is part of that continuing to put capital to work in what I think is a unique place in the world. There's nothing like what we have in New York. There's nothing like that in London, Canary Wharf, maybe Hudson Yards, but there's nothing that really captivates the center of a financial district that has the Hong Kong Stock Exchange, 2 Mandarin Orientals, the most luxurious mall. So that is the reason why we continue to put money into that, because we genuinely believe that this is the right market and that's the right product.
Fantastic. Michael, basically I'll ask you the same question without reference to share price bounces because of your appointment. But
It started in 1998, so we've done it.
yeah, what are your sentiments about the Hong Kong market? Are you bullish on Hong Kong? Are you excited? And is Michael asking you to pay higher rent now, or is he going to give you a little rental relief?
How much time do we have? I've been in Hong Kong living in Hong Kong for the last 17 years. I've been working in Hong Kong for the last 26 years. I started with DFS in 1998 when we were adjusting to the handover and the Japanese abandoning Hong Kong as a destination to shop. And so for 1998 until 2003, Hong Kong market from a retail perspective was in a world of hurt because the tourists were gone and there was no replacement. 2003 came along, and if you know the story on Hong Kong, we got IVS, and the market made a transformation away from Japanese into mainland Chinese, who drove the Hong Kong retail market from 2003 and peaking in 2013. So I'm a believer in Hong Kong and the importance of Hong Kong as a retail market. I do not view Hong Kong as one of our biggest growth opportunities in the world, for a very simple reason. If you look at the history of the Hong Kong retail market, we've been in a state of decline since 2013. And what has driven the retail market in Hong Kong between 2003 and 2013 was growth in mainland Chinese tourists. We had 8 million Chinese tourists in 2003, which grew to 41 million in 2013, with the record-setting spending for Hong Kong at 8,500 Hong Kong dollars per visit. It peaked then. 2024 was 4,500 Hong Kong dollars per visitor in spending. At the same time, the tourism proposition for Hong Kong historically has been shopping. And of course, shopping was the principal reason for many Chinese to travel 2000, first 10 years of this decade, the century, and even from 2010 till 2015. Shopping was 70% of the tourist expenditures in Hong Kong through 2013. So as a destination for shopping, Hong Kong was preeminent in the Asia Pacific. Today, no longer is shopping such an important aspect of Chinese choice of where they travel. It's now only 51% of the wallet in Hong Kong from 70% years ago. And so while I believe the market will remain a very important market in the world, I do not see Hong Kong as the principal source of growth. What I see happening, based on the investment in Landmark and some other investments we'll be making in Hong Kong, is trying to reposition the market and focus on fewer, more important properties, because the industry is very much shifting from the luxury of things to the luxury of experience. And Hong Kong has historically been a luxury of things market where we are delivering products to consumers. We need to pivot this retail market. And so investments in things like Landmark are about repositioning our selling proposition to the mainland Chinese and to the local Hong Kongers in order to deliver better on this luxury of experience. And I think when you see the future landmark open, it's not retail as you know it. And therefore, I believe in what we're doing, but I do not have high expectations on the future growth of Hong Kong.
Okay, thanks. You covered about 10 points that I had in here, so we're going to wrap up early. Because then my bar sales will go up. Okay, so given that you just sort of highlighted something that has been on my mind, which is, and I'm going to ask this question to you, Kathy. Your purview is across Asia, if I'm right. So you're multi-market, and what I have come to understand is that the market for tier 1 cities in China is served in those markets. And no longer do the high net worths need to travel to Hong Kong for that experience. They can get it in Shanghai. But the tier 3 cities, it may still be relevant. The high net worths in the tier 3 cities may still be interested in traveling to Hong Kong for that wonderful experience. How are you approaching, your clientele, and what are you enticing them to do?
Enticing them to do. I think I'm sure we're grappling with that question all the time. I love Michael's comment on this, but from our perspective, we see everybody going to Japan right now because Japan, obviously, the yen is in a state, and so therefore everyone's getting an instant discount on prices on everything. We're seeing the Koreans coming to China, actually, instead of the other way around. So for us, I think a couple of things. Our business has changed quite dramatically, obviously, in the last 20 years, and in the time that you were mentioning as well. Quintessentially, obviously, is 25 years ago a British brand founded by 3 very prominent individuals in the UK. Historically, we've always been a brand that people have known to be kind of an expat business, but we're not. I mean, the reality is I have some of my team here. There's probably one other in my business that actually doesn't speak Cantonese and Mandarin and English. And I'm afraid mine are terrible. Having said that, that's important because the reality is that we are targeting a much more regional business, a much more localized business. You talked about this being one of the cities in the world that, of course, has the most ultra high net worth, as is Singapore. We've seen some growing markets in Thailand. Vietnam is also quite interesting as well for us. So China, yes, is important, but China for us is a beast. If we get 1% of China, I mean, we are a very, very happy winner in this scenario. But I think what is interesting for us is actually this kind of younger. I have 2 things in China that I find very interesting. One is a younger audience that's coming to Hong Kong, aspirationally wants to be like a Hong Kong VIP. Wants to use our services, our concierge services, to understand what's happening in Hong Kong, to get access to these brand invites, to live the life like a Hong Kong VIP. And so we do a lot of that with some of our mainland Chinese members, as well as people who are interested to kind of move here from mainland China. The second audience for me in the China space, I think that's quite interesting, is this kind of how do I classify this correctly? Young, professional, mainland Chinese female, maybe young 40s, who isn't married, who has discretionary money to spend, wants to go travel the world, wants to go live the life outside of China. And so we actually work with a lot of clients who are not necessarily focused so much on being in Hong Kong or being in China, but want to go explore the rest of the world, where we can deploy 40 of our offices around the world to help them live that life. And so, I think this kind of young, sexy female that, is kind of empowered to go and do incredible things around the world is an interesting audience and maybe a growing audience. But we've had some conversations with some of your brands in that space around kind of the female audience and whether or not it's an area to target collectively with some luxury brands that we work with. But yeah, I think it's one to watch, but may not be the answer.
Okay, I'm going to put you on the spot. Are you optimistic about the Hong Kong market right now?
For me, yes. We've had a great year,
yeah.
But I think all things are relative, and I think it's about how you position yourselves within that space in order to be successful.
Okay, Robert, you've been here for a number of years. I think you famously said that the Hong Kong wine market had experienced something that we'll never ever see again. That was in maybe 2010, if I remember correctly. We're a little bit further away from there. What is your perspective on the Hong Kong market today?
Yeah, it was, I did say, I wondered what you were going to say. I said then for a minute, but yeah, I did say that. So that was a result of the regulatory change in 2008, whereby Henry Tang took down the tax on wine from 100% down to 40, then he took it down to zero almost immediately, and that then caused it enabled wine auctions to be feasible in Hong Kong, and that coincided with a lot of stimulus in China, a huge desire for Western luxury goods, which basically meant in 2010 I think Sotheby's, which who I was working for at the time, sold more wine. They sold twice as much wine in Hong Kong as they did in London and New York combined, which were 40-year-old markets. And that was from a zero start. I mean, the wine market has never seen anything like that before, and it will never see anything like that again, that particular moment in time. Where is it now on the wine market in Hong Kong? Hong Kong now has a sophisticated wine market. It's got a lot of infrastructure. It's got the logistics. It's got a lot of merchants. It's settled into a reputable place to buy wine, which is a good thing. It's also one of the cheapest places to buy wine because of the low tax situation in Hong Kong, which is good if you're a consumer. I think right now the whole wine market globally is struggling. You saw a huge run up in prices during COVID. I'm sure we'll touch on that dynamic at some point this evening, whereby 2020 to 2022, you saw a 25 to 35% increase in prices, particularly at the high end, in demand Burgundy, that sort of thing. And then you saw it slide almost exactly the set down to where it was before that, down to 2024. So where is it right now? I think Hong Kong wine consumers are extremely educated. They know where to buy their wine. They know where to get the best wine. They know where to get the best price. I see it, and there's somewhat of a standoff on prices if you look at wine and spirits right now, whereby the people that bought at the top of the market in 22, if they want to resell, well, they want to recoup their money. And the people who are potential buyers are thinking, well, I think it's going to come down another 20, 30%. So you've got this gap, the spread on the buy sell price there, which is not conducive to putting transactions through the market.
Okay, can you give us a little perspective on the Hong Kong market vis-a-vis auction houses now that you no longer have to worry about your employer?
You always have to worry about your employer. You mean in wine or across?
No, I mean across the market.
I mean, it's an interesting time for Hong Kong auction houses, right? Because they've really put a flag down a couple of years ago when they invested in land. So obviously one of them is in Charterhouse. So my former employer, who's taken a very different tact on the art market, where they've really gone down the luxury world and they've invested heavily in a buy now luxury facing e-commerce business. And that's where the current ownership of Sotheby's sees the future of the auction business, and they're largely letting the art side of the business take care of itself. So they have that model. I'm sure you've all walked through Charterhouse recently in what was the Armani space, and you can see lots of things to buy now, lots of goodies from dinosaurs to handbags to sneakers to sculptures. It's pretty much everything there. Then you have Christie's, who are in Henderson, which is really, I think if you're looking at all the auction house spaces, the Christie space, to my mind, is the best. It's the most fit for purpose for a global auction house. I think it really is, albeit it's a very different model to the Sotheby's one, so they're not really like for like. But I think it's a wonderful space, and if you get the chance to go there, and particularly the top floor, or the 39th floor, is really it's really spectacular. And I think they've got it set up exactly as you would have it for a traditional auction house model. Then you have Phillips over in West Kowloon. They've got great gallery space there. Obviously, proximity to M+, which is really they're making a statement there that they're there for the art business. I think they're being slightly hampered by the lack of progress that has been in West Kowloon. There's still half a mile of dirt between West Kowloon and Tsim Sha Tsui, which is not what is going to stimulate the environment they need there to be really successful. And then Bonhams has their space in PP6, which I think is next to Sotheby's back offices there. So I think they've continued to track Sotheby's around Hong Kong from Admiralty and now into Wan Chai, and I think that's probably a good place for them. I think their galleries are excellent actually, and I think it's a good take. So I think all these auction houses have made a huge commitment to Hong Kong, which I think is encouraging. And I think they don't see there were people flirting with Singapore a little bit a couple of years ago when things were obviously really challenging. But I think everyone's really now made a long-term commitment to Hong Kong as the place where this is the Asia trading hub.
Okay, thank you. We interacted a little bit, and I wrote a note to myself, pessimist, coming off of you. Would you just give us your overview of the Hong Kong market as you see it on a retail luxury level?
I think we're in kind of a holding pattern. I think we're waiting for something to happen, and it feels like we've been there for a while. And people talk about green shoots, and they talk about lights at the end of the tunnel, and we're not sure which end of the tunnel they're talking about. But I think that we're waiting for something, right? We're waiting for something which probably is based around some sort of China property solution and then other big macro issues. But I think it feels like people are waiting because they don't want to go all in on something right now.
Right. So the light is sitting on the roof of Landmark. Okay, Charlie, the professor. You have 4 potential clients on the panel and many more in the audience. How would you advise your clients right now? And do you agree so far? And could you paint the picture that you would advise your clients with on the Hong Kong retail market, luxury market?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing I'd say is I'm cautiously optimistic, which is a classic consulting thing to say. It's not taking a view at all. But I think, first and foremost, China, we can't neglect China. China and Chinese consumers spend 20 to 25%, or make up 20 to 25% of global spending on luxury. They're right on the doorstep of Hong Kong, and Hong Kong is the natural first step for those consumers. Those consumers used to come to Hong Kong because there was a price war and there was a 30% price gap with other markets. And they are fickle, right? As we've talked about already. They're going to Japan at the moment because it's much cheaper. At some point, that is going to turn with the currency. So I think, as we look at our consumer clients and we look at spending in Hong Kong, Hong Kong, for all of the clients I talk about, is still a very important hub. 5 to 7% of spending and of their revenues come into Hong Kong. They don't want to lose that. They also see it as a gateway to China and Asia still. It's an easy place to house people. Your key talent coming to Asia want to come to Hong Kong. They did for a while want to go to Singapore, but now it's really Hong Kong. So I think overall, I would remain optimistic about Hong Kong. The one thing that luxury companies need to really think about is how do they entice consumers to come and spend in Hong Kong, not just mainland consumers, but other consumers from around the world. How do they create these experiences that both Michael's just talked about? We need to recreate. We can't recreate what happens in Paris or Milan necessarily, but we can still create memorable experiences. And so how do we do that? Where do we invest in Hong Kong to entice these customers in?
Okay, Michael, I'm fascinated by the company that you represent and particularly by the founder. And I wonder if you would be willing to share a few insights on that. I'll start by asking you, to answer Charlie's question or point, what are the things that need to be done to entice the shopper either to come to Hong Kong or the local market to spend more money here? What fascinates me, by the way, about really what everybody does is that in the luxury space, you do the opposite of what gets taught. If you're looking for a market share grab, you can't lower your prices, and it's also very difficult to cut costs. So how do you sustain in a down market, and what are the things that you look to hold up? In other words,
It's a lot of questions.
there's one question in there. Yeah.
I'll start with our founder always has the same belief, and that is that the results that we achieve are the consequence of the actions that we take. And 100% of his focus in any discussion you have with him ever, whether business is good or bad, is all around building brand desirability through the things that we do in marketing, communication, brand activities, client activities, stores that we build, the experiences in the stores that we build. Most of you probably have seen the phenomenon on social media, on Instagram, of the Louis Vuitton flagship store in New York, where we built the trunks on the flagship store, most expensive hoarding ever in the world. Although when you look at the marketing value of that hoarding, probably the cheapest hoarding ever built in the world. But what is even more amazing is that we created an experiential temporary store across the street, which includes stacks of trunks 3 stories high. It includes restaurant, cafe. It includes some experiential things from a museum. And the results of the temporary store are double the results of the permanent flagship store. In a moment where the retail in New York and the U.S. not doubling. So it shows you the impact of creating these experiences, of immersing consumers in more than just the luxury of things. And that is really the focus of our founder today, is to push and encourage all of our brands to find their way of doing that. The added complexity now, I don't know if you've been watching the last 7 months in China, but of course we all know the story on DeepSeek. I think most of you have probably seen this new animated film in China, which is the first non-Hollywood produced film ever to break into the top 20 grossing films in the world. 100% produced and created in China. The first time ever this has happened. 1.4 billion euro in its opening week, US dollars in its opening week, compared to the next closest film, which was a Star Wars film at 930 million. So it is added to the need to start to bring more culturally relevant elements for the consumer we are talking to back into the business. Just being a great international brand any longer, particularly with mainland Chinese, no longer good enough. If you may have seen, Vuitton just did, or Bulgari just did its Serpenti event in Shanghai, ends this week actually. 4 weeks ago, they had 5 million impressions in the first 3 days of the event, simply because we opened the event with 17 artists to reinterpret the snake for the Year of the Snake. 13 of 17 were Chinese artists, bringing culturally relevant Chinese activities to the brand. And so it's becoming a much more complicated world for us, that it's no longer we create something in Paris and we push it out to all the markets in the world. What was created in New York was created for New York. We will reinterpret that for other parts of the world, but never again will you see that. It's becoming very bespoke, and we need to be creating experiences for the consumer we're trying to speak to. And the Chinese are not behaving the same way that the Koreans are behaving, or the Japanese, or the Americans, or anyone else. Therefore, most of our activity is around trying to create experiences inside our stores that will appeal to this consumer. The result, the sale, that is, in the words of our founder, is the consequence of how well we do these other things. And so even in these bad times, we continue to invest against the trend. Marketing is one of the last investments and events, one of the last things we generally cut at LVMH.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by this. So we've talked about segmentation geographically. Let's talk about segmentation in 2 other ways. Very simplistically, my segmentation of the luxury market is basically affluent versus rich. And what I imagine, without knowing, is that there's a sort of a Pareto curve where the affluent and the aspirationally rich, where the affluent make up a large portion of your sales and the ultra high net worths make up a smaller portion of your sales. I don't know if that's true, so let me test that out first. Is that accurate?
I think it really depends on the brand. A brand that is very democratic like Louis Vuitton has a very large aspirational element to its business, highly dependent on traffic. Other brand that is less traffic dependent, like Dior, has a higher proportion of their business in high net worth individuals. So it is not it's not a question that can be answered equally for every brand. Right? I'm sure Graf would tell you all of their business comes from high net worth individuals. So it really depends on the brand, the products that are sold by the brand, and the higher the concentration of jewelry or ready to wear in the mix, the more important the high net worth individual becomes.
Okay, Professor, you know I'm coming for the answer to my question. How do we segment the luxury market right now? And yeah, I'm leading to something else, obviously, but I just want to set the foundation.
Yeah, I mean, I think purchasing power is obviously a critical element of this, and I think, Michael, you're absolutely right. You can't you have to look at different brands in different ways. But what we're seeing, particularly in China, is that the super high net worths are spending proportionally more per capita year on year at the moment. So they are, the rich are basically spending more. But I think the other thing that we need to look at with luxury is that a lot of the brands are looking at how they can, how consumers can enter that experience, enter that brand, and so making them more affordable ends of the brands, whether that be, entering with accessories or even just a cafe, so that they can get them in the door, and that's making up. And I generalize because I'm a consultant, but what we see in our surveys is that about 20% of the spending is actually now at that affordable end of the market and entering people into that sort of gateway of spending.
Okay, and then let's segment by age group. What I'm assuming is that the ultra high net worths are in the older category, and a lot of brands are maybe trying to target a younger audience and capture that. And would you advise clients at this panel to differentiate their messaging and their experiences and their loyalty programs based on the age segmentation?
Yeah, I think loyalty programs have become extremely sophisticated, and as Michael was saying, you need to localize your proposition. So whether it's for different markets or different consumer types, you want to ultimately get to a one-to-one connection with your consumer. So I think the days of just segmenting and saying it's a grid of 3x3 and you're either old and rich or whatever it is are gone. You now need to be much more sophisticated in the messaging that you get out to your consumers, and you're able to do that now with technology. And I'm sure we'll get onto technology, but if you think about, for example, Gen AI and creating tailored marketing messages, you have companies like I'm trying to think whether I can actually say the name, but anyway, one of the luxury goods companies that now produces 12,000 different marketing campaigns for every marketing campaign they would do before, because they're tailoring it to very specific segments of the market.
Okay, that was the answer I was looking for. Kathy, how do you segment the market? And you have customers across the world, and maybe you can share how many offices you have, and by percentage, I'm very curious how you attract the new customers and the younger and maybe the less affluent. Or is there sort of a cutoff? You cannot be a member of Quintessentially unless you're owning a boat.
I mean, I think if you own a boat and you're 18, we'd love to have you as a member. There was one period of time, I mean, we kind of joke, but there was not that long ago where actually we had a member who was 18. He was next generation, of course. I'm sure he had a bit of help from mom and dad for his membership. He's been a loyal member for many years. At one point, we had one of our members who I think was in his late 70s or 80s who just wanted to live his best life. So really, we have a really broad spectrum. I think for us, we don't really have, as we're talking about, kind of segments of our membership. It doesn't really fall into a bucket of, if you're 38 and have a young family and like to fly business or first, you happen to like this membership. We do have different types of membership that that cater to different types of individuals who like to use our services here in Hong Kong, those who like to travel around the world, but many of I would say our top customers are the ones that have multiple homes in multiple different places around the world. They wouldn't call Hong Kong their only home. They have a home in France. They've got maybe another place in London. They're global citizens. And now today, ultra high net worth customers are global travelers. It just happens to be synonymous with the category. For us, I guess in kind of hearing about, we're trying to kind of categorize all of these things. Our business is based on relationships. And the reason why people have our service is because we get to know you as an individual, and we know Marc, I'm making it up, but we know Marc likes a drink, or Marc is allergic to nuts, and so therefore maybe he's a vegetarian, and so we wouldn't recommend any steak restaurants to you. But the whole point of our service is to really get to know you as a person, to serve you as an individual, to help you get a better life, so that ultimately you don't have to spend the time on things that people just don't have time for anymore. Time is a luxury. Nobody has time. It really is about helping people live their best lives and or helping brands be the best version of themselves and helping them to create better stickiness with their top 1 to 2% of their customers. And really it's finding that opportunity for brands to build a connection with their audience is what we excel at individually, and we work with brands to try and help them achieve that. And I think it's really hard. You know, this whole talk of personalization and luxury, you have to personalize your market. You need to personalize your marketing communications to the point where 12,000 different campaigns are running to make it feel like someone is talking only to me. And we all want that. You all want to feel special. You all want to feel like you are the only person in this world that that brand cares about. And if so, then you'll come back every time. So the question is, what brings you back every time? Often it's the people. It's the service that brings you back. So you might have the best product in the world with the most beautiful piece of leather, with the most gorgeous design. But if you walk into that room and the salesperson totally ignores you, gets it wrong, you've missed the opportunity. It's a disaster. You know, the whole point of opportunity and risk lies a very fine line, I think, in the luxury space, because you can lose their trust in an instant. And that ultra high net worth place in particular is really built on people having relationships with a brand or a person that happens to sit in a retail shop. And they'll come back every time because they know Marc has such great taste. He'll make sure I have the best things laid out for me by the time I get there. So the trick is, I think, for brand is how do you keep them there? You know, building those relationships and introducing and starting new relationships is easy. Maintaining them is really difficult.
Okay, Smitty, if you are a curator of an environment, you choose the brands that you want to have in your property, and then you have conversations with them and demand things of them to create a great experience so that it is maybe unilateral across the experience. So what are the conversations that you're having with your tenants, and what is the market in your mind? Who is the market that you're addressing?
Again, a series of questions. Our new slogan is "Experience is Central," so as part of our sort of revamp, and it's a play on words. We're a 136-year-old company, so we have a lot of experience, but we create experiences, and it's central, small c, not just central Hong Kong, but small c central. It's central to what we believe in. So we need to be able to ensure that we can create the experiences outside of the individual shops. So having both of the Mandarins, the bridges, the activation that we want to continue to do across that whole portfolio is critical. Because if we don't create, to Michael's point, the whole experience, then all of the individual tenants aren't going to be happy with that. So the conversations that we have with the tenants is, what are you going to do with Central? And we are working with the government and others to try and improve the whole Central offering outside of our individual buildings, because I'm not sure those of you who've been to Miami's design district or other parts of the world, but it's the whole district. And parts of Hong Kong Central, the streetscapes, etc., are not that appealing. So, how can we elevate the whole experience? How can we ensure that, every single day of the week is a good experience to be in Hong Kong Central? At the moment, I don't think it quite is, and there's sort of work to be done. So the brand conversations is what can we do as a firm with government and with others to really elevate the Central experience.
Okay, so let's talk about the things outside of the physical space. How important is technology to you? How important is the online and digital world to you? And yeah, so I don't want to ask you too many questions at once. I know that upsets you. Let's go with yeah.
I mean, in terms of technology, we have a $24 billion portfolio in Hong Kong Central. We spend $50 to $100 billion a year on sustainability, on technology, on digitization to ensure, which sounds like a lot of money in absolute terms, but as a percentage of the portfolio, it's not a lot. We're spending another $400 million on what we want to do with Landmark. So every dollar that we spend on that portfolio tries to create a moat to ensure that the experience that it creates for tenants, for Michael and from some of the other brands, is the best experience that the customer can get. So, we can't do the marketing for the brands, but we can ensure that the ecosystem that we create is the best in totality, provides the best experience for those who want to be there. I think the other difference with Landmark is its history. I think luxury and tradition are quite important. The first Chanel opened in Asia in Landmark in the 70s. And, people can remember when their grandparents shopped there, when their parents shopped there. And it's sort of aspirational. If you're going to buy a wedding ring, or if you're going to buy a nice watch, there is an aspirational value of actually going and shopping in the Landmark. So we're very fortunate of being in that location in the center of the city with all its connectivity, the Mandarins, etc. We want to make sure that we continue that.
Okay, Mr. Schriver, how important is technology and how important is online shopping for you?
I'll start with online shopping. I think that, particularly with the mainland Chinese, it's a bit less about how much you sell online, and it's the importance of your online presence, because most mainland Chinese have a ROPO rate, a research online purchase offline, of more than 80%. So the stronger you are in your digital world, the better you are in your physical world, because people are working in both spaces. Where they transact is less of an issue for us. So, but the virtual space is critically important because it further improves your physical retail selling experience as well. So that's the first element to that. Second element, technology takes different forms depending on where you are. On my side of LVMH, the retail side of LVMH, our main investment today is in AI, but not in AI to speak to consumers. AI as a tool and an enabler for the people who work for us, because we are finding that through using AI to better empower and enable client advisors, they're able to more accurately serve a greater number of clients than they've ever been able to in the past. Because the percentage of clients who come in high volume brands like Louis Vuitton and others, the number of clients who come in, make a purchase, and leave and are never spoken to again is at an exceptionally high level. Unbelievably high. And the only way for us to really correct that is through using technology to better enable our client advisors to serve a higher proportion of clients than they ever have in the past. And so we're putting a lot of time, energy, and money. We have built data teams around this in our markets to try to help enable our client advisors to better serve their clients. We are somewhat opposed to using AI to directly communicate with consumers. From a targeting perspective and for platforms that we use and who gets what message, we're comfortable using AI, but from truly talking to consumers is a bit not in what we believe the future of LVMH at this point in time.
And I love that answer. Okay, Charlie, what are you seeing in terms of the shift to online shopping, the increase in online shopping? What I understand is about 12% of the luxury market bought online last year.
Yeah, that's right. There or thereabouts. It differs by market. So if we look at Korea, for example, it's a much higher proportion. But as Michael rightly said, I mean, it's all about getting your consumers into the funnel. And about 80% of shopping experience starts online. There is no better way to engage with your consumer, though, than by a human interaction. And so what we're really seeing is how can luxury brands enable their teams to better serve their customers. Now that can be through the client advisor, through platforms in the back end, but not to actually liaise with the customers. It can be through optimization of supply chains to get the product quicker to the consumer. It can be through better understanding the consumer needs and preferences in the market to inform your assortment. It can be things like that. But what we're not seeing is that robots are taking over and literally liaising with your consumers. That's just not what it is. The bot will be there in front of you on your iPad, and it will be telling you all the history of the consumer, helping you to understand and interact with what should we be saying to our consumer now? What else can we recommend for this consumer? How can we increase the sale and the number of items in the basket?
Okay, I want to give you all a chance to interact, but let me just focus on Hong Kong and the people that aren't on this panel. What are the other things that should be done to, let's say, rejuvenate or spice up the market here? And I mean from the government's point of view, from the tourism point of view, from a landlord point of view, if that's not your business. Who are the other players that you would like to see actively involved in regenerating the market here? Robert, why don't I start with you, and then we'll sort of move down.
Yeah, it's applying some sort of cool factor to Hong Kong, right? And like people used to, my perception at least is, I've been in Hong Kong for 15 years, and there used to be a perception that this was a cool place to go, whether you're going for a long weekend or a week, and there was a desire for people to come here, and I feel that perception is a little bit different than it was. So how do we get that back? And that's probably not a question directly for me, but I think when for example, when Taylor Swift did her tour and it was exclusively in Singapore, I was like, ah, that might have been a bit of a missed opportunity there. I mean, that would be something where you feel Hong Kong should have that kind of opportunity.
This is going to hurt, but we got Taylor Swift and you got Miami. Um, you got a football game and you didn't get it. And that, I think it was a very difficult thing, but it was a super initiative, both from the company that brought them here and from the government in supporting it. It unfortunately didn't work out. But it's funny, the perception of Singapore. A lot of people are angry at Singapore for having pulled that exclusive market fee. Okay, anything to add?
No, I think it's bringing back that desirability, that desires, like, yeah, I want to go to Hong Kong. Not just like I'm just passing through and I'll pick up a flight somewhere else. It's like you want to be here.
Yeah. Kathy, I'm sort of worried about asking you because the way I'm understanding your business is you really are just a global entity, and local market is maybe not as important to you.
Wouldn't necessarily say that. You know, I think, of course, a lot of our members who have Quintessentially memberships here use our service here, but they also use it when they are traveling internationally. We do, of course, work with our members who travel here as well. But I think, in kind of thinking back to maybe the time that Robert was alluding to, even 10 years ago, Hong Kong was a really creative place. I think, we used to bring artists, actually Quintessentially brought over David Beckham, I think, in working with AIA. We did a kind of big activation with them at the time, and Ariana Grande. And okay, these were more kind of celebrity type of experiences, and Anya Hindmark and other kind of British artists that would come out. We just haven't seen so much of that energy. And I think for brands to be inspired, they need artists. We need to go back to the kind of foundation of what we're actually talking about, craftsmanship, artists who can create these beautiful things and inspire people to come here and want to come for those types of experiences. I would probably say our members are lovers of all of those things. So, it matters to us too, because, Hong Kong needs those things in order to attract a high net worth community and for us to have a business here as well.
Yeah, Singapore likes to think that it can manufacture creativity. One of the things that I read was that in Hong Kong made 300 films. 300 films were produced in Hong Kong in the year 2000, and 30 were produced in this country in 2018. And that is a tremendous drop-off, and all of that has shifted to China. And that is, a tragedy. On the other side of the coin, though, I think M Plus Museum is one of the best museum experiences I've ever had. And, hopefully nobody is recording this, but Singapore could never ever pull off M Plus Museum. We don't understand it, and we just wouldn't do it. So I love that you bring up that point. The grittiness of Hong Kong needs to be celebrated. That is the thing that people love. So Michael, is that something that goes within the moat?
Just personally, I lived here in the 90s. I then went back to Australia, and then I lived here again in the 2000s. And then I spent 20 years in Singapore, became a Singapore citizen, and now I'm back here at the beginning of this year. So I've had lots of different experiences through Hong Kong. It's my spiritual home. I think this place has got so much to offer. I don't think that we market ourselves. We're very good at transactions. Hong Kong has always been a center of excellence for transactions, but in terms of self-promotion and marketing and self-belief, I think it's been poor. I think there was a lot more self-belief in the 90s and the 2000s that you could do anything in Hong Kong. You literally could just roll your sleeves up and do whatever, it just was a lot more momentum and go. I feel as though this time around, my third trip of living in Hong Kong, that's not as clear as it was. Sort of a lack of confidence, a lack of self-belief. So, everybody in this room, we all need to sort of step up and try to get that swagger back that I think is probably missing.
Charlie, is there a pendulum shifting back and forth, or is there a step change?
No, I think it's a pendulum, and I think all the points that people have made on the panel are absolutely right. I think we just need to bring this swagger back to Hong Kong. We need to make it a place where people want to come. It's a destination, and government can help us on that. Brands can help us on that. How do we create memorable experiences in Hong Kong? The landmark will be a great starting point for that, but we need more. M plus people on the international scene are starting to see that. But we need to have an allure back to Hong Kong.
So maybe really cool membership clubs would help the market. Is that maybe what you're saying? Okay, I had to put a plug in there. Okay, I'd really love to open up to questions. Please just pop your hand up. Do we have a roaming microphone? If not, then just project. Anybody? Yes, please. Roaming microphone is on its way.
Maybe this isn't the right choice. Hello? Right. I have a question. So, Michael, you mentioned the shift of going from the luxury of things to luxury of experience. And I know LVMH, you guys have been doing this for like 2 decades for going into the hospitality industry, like not just on like clothes and fashion and makeup, but also going into like hotels and restaurants and everything. Do you see this trend going? And how do you view, and also from the landlord perspective, maybe, do you also see this trend going? And obviously for Hong Kong land, we also have like retail properties and also hotel properties. How do we see that? Is it a risk or is it an opportunity for us to further go into this kind of like collaboration?
A complicated question. Of course, I think we're really at the beginning of marrying luxury stores with the luxury of experience. So whether that's hotels adjoining the stores, or restaurants adjoining the stores, museums in the stores, we're really at the very early stages of that. There are only a few of them around the world have been created so far, and the results are very good. Saying that, I do not imagine that the entire universe of luxury stores will suddenly, or will at any point in time, adapt this. I think it is a strategic movement, more about creating brand desirability and engaging consumers, likely in major cities around the world. It's not something you will see everywhere, because in our industry, that inaccessibility, that scarcity is part of the experience. And so we need to find that balance always of scarcity with, if too much of a good thing in our industry is too much. And so it's finding that fine balance. I was having a debate with Mr. Arnaud at one point in time. We were doing pop-up restaurants in our flagship store in Seoul, because we felt, myself and the team in Korea, bring in a celebrity chef, do it only for 6 weeks. It opens, it closes. If you don't book your reservation in the first 15 minutes, you're out. And then the restaurant will never repeat itself. So that level of scarcity is something that's magical for our business. And we can't do that if it's a 52-week-a-year, 7-day-a-week business. And so we have to find the right balance in this luxury of experience, whether it's hotels or restaurants or museums or any other elements we bring, number of fashion shows we do. We need to continue to find this balance of scarcity with bringing these experiences and other things into the consumer. The scarcity really almost as important, maybe more important.
Can I just throw this question at you as well? Is there a shift in your customer base from goods to experiences?
Absolutely. I'm sure you heard me say that, but absolutely. I think we are absolutely in the experience economy right now. Brands are looking for it. Individuals are looking for it. The next generation is desperate for it. They want authentic experiences. They want personalized, individual, intimate experiences, for sure. And I think in thinking about that, how do we make those experiences memorable? How do we make those customers come back again? I think the challenge we probably now have, which we're seeing in our business, because we serve a lot of different corporate businesses across luxury brands, private banks, insurance companies, and real estate businesses. The challenge we have in Hong Kong is because we don't have so many, I would say, visitors coming in from outside into Hong Kong. All of those categories are now competing for the same customers. So, private banks are talking to the same people that are getting the invitation to the Louis Vuitton, product opening, and the Chanel invite, and the this invite and that invite. So actually, we've got a pretty spoiled base of high net worth customers here who've seen everything and see who do it well and see who do it not very well. So I think, when businesses are actually coming to us, they're looking for something different. And to your point about exclusivity, they're also looking for something rare and unique and talks about their brand and helps them to tell their brand story. So, I think long story short is that, yes, we're absolutely in the experience economy. I think it's kind of what do you do with that to make yourself different in this space, and offer something exclusive, because the reality is everybody's offering the same thing at the moment.
Michael?
Yeah, I think the days of the conventional mall, sort of box mall that just has sort of all the brands sort of sitting around a corner, I think those days are over. The project I talked about in West Bund in Shanghai is a 1.6 kilometer retail strip. It does have some of the luxury brands, but it's also going to have a lifestyle area, a wellness area, and it's going to be an experience all the way down. It's not going to be a box. So I think in Hong Kong Central, we have 16 Michelin stars. Alex is here with instruction to go to 20 Michelin stars. We have the Cardinal Point on top of Gloucester Tower. We are about to announce something pretty exciting on the top of Princess Building where the old Seva was. All of those elements play the part of you want to be in Central and you want to be part of that ecosystem. And the more that we can do that in conjunction with our partners, our tenants, the more people that will gravitate towards Landmark and to Central, and it'll be better for all.
Either of you, anything to add? Next questions? Please
sorry,
put your hand up.
just-
No, just while you're doing that, I just want to get the microphone to the next question. Gentleman in the green shirt, can we get a mic to him? Okay, sorry, Charlie.
So it's just a minor point. We do a survey every year with Tencent, and one of the points that came up, this is particularly aimed at mainland Chinese consumers, is that yes, experience is ultimately the trend globally, but with mainland consumers, and particularly the first-time buyers, they're much more transactional. They just want that product. Now, it's just one sort of comment on everything that we've said just now. Is experiences are super important, and having these enormous, experiential, whatever it is, a theatre that's turned into a theatre of dreams, turning an old spa or a swimming pool into a store. That's super important. But sometimes for these first-time buyers, you just got to have the product, and so therefore in Hong Kong, you need to segregate. Going back to your point earlier, you need to segregate the market and say, if we want to draw people into Hong Kong, some people, some mainland Chinese tourists in particular, just want to come in here, buy the goods, get out. Some want the full experience. So we need to have a little bit of both.
Okay, that's good news for Michael. Did you build an edible Christmas tree?
We did in Singapore, yes, we did. With I think it was like chocolate baubles, and then the surprise, we'd had this private bank kind of activation that we did, and we built this Christmas tree, and then it was sitting there in the middle of the dinner, and then at the end of the actual dinner, we said, and now you can go and eat your dessert.
It wasn't a small Christmas tree.
No, it was like a 14-foot tree. It was a humongous tree.
Yep. Amazing. Robert, did you have anything you wanted to add? Okay, thank you for that question. I wish I had asked it. Gentlemen.
Thank you very much for your insights. I was wondering, as you were mentioning, talking about different experiences, also different things, and all your clients in Asia, all the ultra high net worths having seen everything. We see a shift also towards local luxury brands or local luxury hotels, local luxury boutiques. Have you seen any emerging local competitors that you're buying in like different industries? Where we've seen also a lot of M&A activities recently in the beauty industry. So I was wondering how you're reacting towards that, or investing in these local players. Thank you.
Who do you work for?
I'm Jonathan Lee, and I work for Keelin, a local luxury jewelry brand, part of Karen Group. Thank you.
You're kicking that to me. I think on the beauty, for those of us who are a bit older, who've been around for a while, people all the way back to the late 90s, everyone doubted when the Korean beauty brands first started coming into market that they could ever overtake the international players in Korea. Today, Korean beauty brands are 50% of the Korean beauty market. So I think that all of us have learned our lesson, and certainly we see a lot of, particularly in the beauty skincare world, a lot of emerging localized brands in China who are coming in, who the consumer feels are more expert in Chinese skin than the international players. It's inevitable that we will see a surge in Chinese beauty brands in China. It's already starting to happen. They're still relatively small, undercapitalized, but they're coming. And we're all bracing for that day. In the world of fashion and watches and jewelry, it has always been the barriers to entry are quite high. And therefore, it has been difficult in any market really, for true localized luxury brands to really emerge against the major players. They can come in and take a small piece of the market, and maybe they'll impact some of the smaller luxury brands in the market, but not necessarily a threat to the major players, the Hermes, the Chanels, the Vuittons of the world. Not really a threat to them. The size of those brands and the level of investment make it very formidable for anyone to compete. You broke it.
So, okay. It just works with you now. Oh yeah? Okay, I'm trying to get. Okay. I'm. Is it? Okay. I can speak loud if need be. Okay. I'm trying to piece together a few things you said here and there, starting with talking about luxury and very high net individuals. Then Michael was mentioning the average the average basket going down for visitors in Hong Kong.
Spend per visitor. I didn't say average basket.
No,
spend per visitor.
Spending during the trip here, right? Okay, so this, and then we're talking about making Hong Kong cool again and getting people in. So my question to you is about the future of luxury in Hong Kong. Is it really targeting very high net worth individual, and it's going to be big tickets, smaller people, big tickets, or can Hong Kong still be a mass luxury and entry luxury? I represent a fashion designer brand, so we're not in LVMH, but we are the little brothers, I would say. So wondering if there is a market for us here for people who are 4,000 is my average ticket, so I think it means they just come to me and they don't come to you anymore.
Congratulations.
Are you looking for retail space? Is it?
I'm getting close to retirement. It's not that important.
Michael's the day after.
I honestly, beyond Graph, there are a few luxury brands that really can survive only on high net worth individuals. They're critical, they're important, they're a meaningful portion of the business, but I don't think any of us could survive only on high net worth individuals. Secondarily, when you look at the tourism product in Hong Kong, okay, we have 93,000 hotel rooms, of which 21,000 are 5-star rooms. Macau only has 43,000 hotel rooms, of which 24,000 are 5-star. Macau has 3,000 additional 5-star rooms coming online in the next 3 years. Hong Kong, 0. So I think would be difficult for Hong Kong to pivot and be focused only on high net worth individuals because we don't have the product. We don't have a competitive product. If you look around the world at where these individuals can go to get hotel rooms and other things, the Hong Kong tourism product isn't competitive. Macau's investing $16 billion over the next 10 years in the tourism product in Macau, non-gaming. We don't have anywhere near that level of investment coming here. And so unless we pivot and change a lot about the way we're approaching tourism, the level of investment in tourism, we need to work with a balance of some high net worth individuals and the masses. And Hong Kong was successful on the masses, 51 million mainland Chinese in 2018, 40 million mainland Chinese in 2013, the 2 best years in the history of retail in Hong Kong. And we have never gotten anywhere near those 2 years. It has always been a market benefiting from quantity more so than quality. That's not to say there aren't very high quality clients in Hong Kong, but that's not where the huge revenue has come from. If we dial back and focus on locals and high net worth individuals, then the 300 billion Hong Kong dollar retail market will be 250 billion Hong Kong dollar retail market. So we need both, and we don't have the product to really be an exclusive high net worth individual market.
Any other perspectives on the panel? Michael? No? Okay. Next question. Thank you.
Does it work? Okay. Hi, my name is Victoria. I work for Christie's. Thank you, Robert, for complimenting the Henderson. We do have a preview next month during the Art Basel, so please come visit us. Free entry, so everyone should
Not
come.
a question, it's an advertisement.
My question is, we talk about artists. Louis Vuitton also have the Murakami's campaign. We also have the M Plus that we talk about. And Hong Kong government has been like really promoting art and luxury. Do you think that's the future for Hong Kong as a branding? That's questions for Quintessentially and Michael Schriver, maybe?
Yeah, well, I mean, I probably would say this because we are the official concierge partner of Art Basel. So, you know, it's always been a milestone.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I thought that was a bold move, and it's a global partnership.
We have a global partnership with Art Basel. We have been the partner for Art Basel here in Hong Kong for many years, before it was even Art Basel. So when it was Art Hong Kong, back in the 2010s, maybe late 2000s. And it's always been, I think, it's been a flagship event for Hong Kong. It's certainly been a milestone on our members' calendar. It's something that we even get members inquiring about every year because they want access to go see the show. And I think it's always been a huge draw. I do think Hong Kong is trying to develop its arts and culture. I think I love, as you mentioned previously, M+. I love M+. I'm a huge art fan. There's so many wonderful things in the city, and I think, of course, we could do more. I think I have to be careful what I say here, but I think, in closed
You
doors.
have to be careful what you think, only what you say.
Correct. I think the government is trying, through the mega events, to create opportunities for brands, businesses, or others to create these mega event opportunities on the culture side. I think we haven't quite, back to our point earlier about kind of bringing creativity back to Hong Kong, we haven't quite nailed the big names yet. We've tried. There's been a few brands that are trying to bring stuff, and they haven't quite gotten over the line in terms of funding. There's we hear the talks, we know they're happening, and they just haven't quite gotten over the line yet. So I think there's some work that has to be done there, I think, from the government supporting side. But I think there's a willingness. But in true Hong Kong style, and maybe I would say this because we're quite entrepreneurial as a business, is that actually, I think the great stuff in Hong Kong has happened organically, without government funding, without doing the mega events and this and that. It's a bunch of people getting together saying, this is really cool. I went to the Maison Objet during Design Week last December. Did anyone go to that? It was fantastic. It wasn't commercial. It was real artisans come to Hong Kong, showcasing what they were, good at, incredible creations, really creative, different, small, intimate, not crowded. So there's of course, there's a point where everything goes super commercial, but I think if we can inspire more activities like that, where people just kind of get together and do stuff and bring brands over and create these experiences and do what Hong Kong does best, which is be a bit underground and forget the mega funding and just get on with it. Then I think we have some opportunities to do some really cool stuff.
This is a Singaporean citizen, I can say this, but I think Singapore is heavily reliant on the Singapore government. Whether it's the Formula One, whether it's Taylor Swift, it's very much government initiated. I don't think Hong Kong has historically, government has always been a lot more step back. So it's really up to all of us. Everybody needs to step up, because I don't think we can rely here in the same way Singapore relies on its government.
Any other perspectives? Okay.
I think
Robert?
the art card is a card that Hong Kong should play really strongly, because it's something we already do really well. You've got 4 international auction houses here. You've got M+, which is head and shoulders the best contemporary art museum in Asia. You've got amazing logistics. You've got a wealth of international galleries between Central, and then on the south side as well. So I think it's something that really Hong Kong needs to maximize the value out of it, because it is something no one comes close. I mean, you've got Art Basel, which is here, which is easily head and shoulders the most sophisticated art fair in Asia. Respect to art Singapore, not in the same league yet.
Don't worry.
You've got you've got Tokyo Gendai, you've got Taipei Gendai, you've got Dangdai, you've got Freeze in Seoul, which again is, everyone was talking about that during COVID. Is Seoul going to take over Hong Kong? It's not happening. It's not happening. So this is the place to be for art in Asia, and we ought to maximize the value for brand Hong Kong on that for sure.
Thanks for the question. Please.
We actually invested in Hong Kong heavily. We're opening a 7,000 square meter warehouse, specialized in art logistics, conservation, training, and others. The one area that I think
I just want everybody to hear you.
so we are investing in Hong Kong. We believe I think now is the time to invest in Hong Kong, in art logistics. We're opening a 7,000 square meter warehouse, specialized in art logistics, conservation, framing. The one thing that I've seen the last few months is something that happens in other part of the world, is luxury as an investment. We are being asked by collectors to provide services for handbags, as you would know, Robert, from the auction houses, but also fashion. And as you know, the humidity in Hong Kong is to very high level. One of the difficult parts for collectors is to store the items in the proper condition. You know, you buy leather goods, after a few months, humidity attacks, and it's very difficult to restore. So it's very important to have facilities that can actually help this investment basically retain its value and gain value. So is this something that you see your buyers, Michael, I think that would go to you, seeing this luxury as an investment? Is it something you see in the local market, in your local consumers? I'm interested to hear, because that's going to impact my business plan.
Of course, there's always an element to investor purchasing in the industry for exclusive, hard to get products. So there's an element of that, but I wouldn't say it is one of quantity. It's a select group of individuals. It's very select products. It doesn't apply to the majority of the things we sell. But yes, of course, there is an element to this of people who need these services for people who may have procured Supreme trunks several years ago. The resale value on those trunks is quite exceptional, and therefore preservation becomes quite important. We deal with it more from the restoration side, because most of the products we make, particularly in Vuitton, we have the capabilities to restore for the clients. But yes, it's out there, but it is not, and you're not talking about a quantity business, it is not a quantity element. It is a handful of select group of people who are probably your clients, I would imagine.
I think there's, as you mentioned, a kind of mixture of both. I think some people are buying for investment, but I think actually some people are buying to enjoy. And much of luxury should be about enjoyment. You know, we should have passion for the purchases that we're making. I think ultimately, actually, if you're going to be spending £20,000 on a bag, somewhere, someone sparked something in you, and there's a little twinkle in your eye, and it's going to make you want to make that purchase. And it's that kind of emotional connection to the object. And for some people, it might be a thing. You know, it might be the design, or it might be the color, it might be other stuff. For others, I think it actually is maybe the person that they built a relationship with, that actually thought, this is a good purchase.
Often the value is not obvious when you make the purchase.
Correct.
The value, realize the value appeared after you've made the purchase, because the product sold out so quickly, it was in such high demand, and therefore the scarcity makes the product very valuable. So it's often not bought for the purposes of investment, but after you purchased it, you realize it's a great investment.
Robert, do you have a anything to add?
Yeah, there are different types of collectors, right? There's the accidental investor, as you say, Michael. There's the collector, right, who is the encyclopedic well, who wants to gain, like, if you're talking about handbags, is it every single Birkin and every single color in every single animal skin? In which case, and that is then a collection when, Zora, they might need your services, in that sort of thing. There is the the geek in a way who wants to that long connection. Then there is the investor, and then there's the person who enjoys it because they actually love it and they want to use it every day. So I think, there are services for people who need those, and Hong Kong's obviously the ideal place to do it because you've got, no tax going in and out, and also relatively easy on the endangered species and that kind of stuff. You've got a low friction there as well. So good luck with that.
Okay, we're going to take 2 or 3 more questions. So, gentleman here, young lady, no? Okay. Okay, there's a lot of pressure on you right now. Last question. Please go ahead.
My name's Sean from that company that staged football match about a year ago. Thank you for bringing that up, Marc.
Ouch. This is awkward.
It's okay, we survived. We have more coming. We have more coming, actually. Just get ready. So my question for Mr. Smith. Okay, so seeing as a lot of luxury is going experiential, and a lot of experiential is seemingly centered around gastronomy, and there is obviously the space vacated by Seva, and it strikes me that Seva actually captured a zeitgeist. The zeitgeist we described earlier, Michael Schriver described it well, 2013, 2018. This was kind of the heyday. And I feel like what thought processes have gone into designing the new space, knowing that it has to capture the zeitgeist chapter ahead of us?
Great question, and luckily it predates me. So all those decisions were made prior to my becoming chief executive. But going forward, it is the most important roof, I think, in Hong Kong. I honestly do believe it's definitely the most important rooftop terrace in the Hong Kong land portfolio. So it needs to be incredibly elevated. It needs to be incredibly special. Below it, there will be an 8-story Chanel, an 8-story Hermes, as part of the transformation that we're taking place. And it's incredibly, incredibly critical. So all I can say is watch this space. We have announcements coming up. But we've been taking our time to ensure that we get it absolutely right for all the reasons you said. And we all have very fond memories of the last place.
Thank you, Sean. Please.
Hello. Yeah. Hi, my name's Junie. I'm an artist as well, and I do a lot of especially multidisciplinary artists, especially in visual arts, and also I'm a DJ as well. So I'm really interested in the immersive experience created with audio visual elements. My question is that what I think Kathy just said really I resonate with that a lot. Is that I really wanted to see more events that's more intimate and small, and also giving more space for emerging, especially Asian artists, to showcase their work. Because I think a lot of when I think about luxury brands and the launch events and the launch parties, I've been to a few in Hong Kong before. It's it just feels like the artists that are coming are all very well known. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on how could luxury brands moving forward to how can emerging Asian artists to find more outlets or space to perform and see more of that happening in Asia, and I guess especially in Hong Kong.
Kick us off, and then you guys can supplement. But for me, actually, I think interestingly, we've gone from a market of having these really big events, pre-COVID, to actually being much more intimate now when we look at the kind of corporate events that we're doing with some of our businesses that we work with now. So, where we used to be doing 200-300 cocktail events, now we're doing 60 to 80 people, or maybe 20 or 30 people for a really intimate dinner. I think luxury brands are finding more ways to create more private spaces. There's been a huge kind of uptake of luxury brands who are increasing their dressing room space and creating bars inside the actual retail space to create more space, but more intimate space to really connect with customers. So I definitely think there's a market for it, in terms of kind of being a smaller, more intimate venue. And I think there's actually a lot of brands who are passionate about art. who align themselves with art and look for either emerging artists or other artists that they can bring into their brand. I think it all comes down to the brand values and how it aligns to that artist messaging or the medium, or whatever it is that they are using. I think that alignment is probably the most critical part for bringing in a collaborator in that space. But it's definitely happening, and I think it's happening more with Asian artists, which I think is exciting. But of course, I think there hasn't been as many Asian artists in past, for us to choose from. But I definitely think that there's an underground group and community of wonderful people, and I think people are trying to inspire more, particularly from this part of the world, to continue to create. Guys, thoughts?
I think there's a conscious effort on the part of brands today to use more local talent. As I mentioned on the Bulgari event in Shanghai, we commissioned 13 Chinese artists out of the 17 pieces in the event. Louis Vuitton for Objet Nomade has for the last 10 years been searching locally in each of the markets, including China and all of Asia, to find artists and product creators to create unique pieces for the Objet Nomade collection. So if you look at the Vuitton Objet Nomade, you have artists from all over the world who are creating inside that collection. It goes back to the point I made in the beginning that our business is becoming more localized. Being relevant in the culture in which we are working is no longer a good idea, it's a requirement. And so it's not something we do when we have time. It's becoming more a part of how we do what we do. And we are looking at everything we do for what are the opportunities to better engage locally and be more culturally appropriate where we are. And so that should open more opportunities for talent locally all around the world.
Okay, thank you for the question. And I'm also going to say thank you to all of you for coming tonight. And then I'm going to say it's been a luxurious conversation. And please join me in thanking our panelists for taking the time to be here tonight. Thank you all.